Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. Good day, my bed crimers. I hope you guys are all doing really well. To anyone new, a very warm welcome. Thank you for checking me out. If after listening to this video or watching it, you find you enjoyed it or learned something, please do me a favor, hit the like button. It really helps me so much. And also consider subscribing. Now let's get started. As more information leaks out, it seems clearer to me that suspect Brian Kohberger, who has been charged with allegedly committing the quadruple crime in Moscow, Idaho, was not a genius crime planner. Yes, he eluded the police for 7 weeks. That seemed like a long time in the beginning, but he also got caught after just 7 weeks, if he is indeed the perpetrator. If Kohberger is found guilty of this crime, he will be, in my mind, a classic tragic hero. I don't mean a hero as in someone heroic. I mean the classic tragic hero character in dramatic plays and stories. I studied literature in college, and I can't help connecting this case to the many tragic plays I read. This story is a tragedy no matter how you look at it. The promising lives of 4 precious human beings were cut short, and these beautiful kids died in a most brutal manner. 4 families are grieving and also grappling with the horror of what happened to their loved ones. The person who the police believe caused all this horror, Brian Kohberger, is much like a classic tragic hero character. Such characters are destined for a downfall, and it's often brought about because of their hubris or pride. Kohberger, if he is found to be guilty, got caught, in my mind, because of his ego. He may have been so convinced that he could outwit the authorities that he failed to see the flaws in his plan and or failed to plan for potential problems he might encounter. For the rest of us looking in on this tragedy, Kohberger, if he is the perpetrator, is the monster under the bed that we all fear. Maddie and Kaylee did everything right that night. They followed the safety rules, went in a pair to the bar, walked on the main street that was well lit, got a ride home from someone they knew after drinking. They didn't drive home, but none of that protected them from the monster under the bed. That's not supposed to happen. They were supposed to evade the monster. After Kohberger was arrested, it seemed clear that the Moscow police, with the Idaho State Police and the FBI's assistance, caught someone who many criminal profilers have said would likely have gone on to become a serialist if he isn't already one. Maybe over time, if he had not been caught and had been left to his own devices, he would have honed his skills. If Kohberger is found to be the perpetrator, then he pretty much got caught in record time. He's no Dennis Rader. Rader eluded the cops for decades. Here are the top 10 blunders Kohberger made that led the police to his doorstep and that may get him convicted of this incredibly violent and evil crime. 1. He drove his own car when allegedly committing the crime, and that car was captured in footage of security cameras in Moscow and near the crime scene at the time the crime occurred. Had Kohberger driven a stolen car or somebody else's car, he might not have been connected to that white Elantra that was in the footage. 2. He had his cell phone on when he drove to the girl's house 12 times. 11 of those were at night. That cell phone being near that house 12 times prior to the crime implies that Kohberger was surveilling it and them. I'd be curious to know if the girls had thrown parties on any of those 12 days. If not, the defense may not be able to get away with saying Kohberger's DNA was on the leather sheath because he attended a party there. 3. His cell phone was either turned off, put on airplane mode, or lost its connection to the AT&T network during the hour the crime occurred. The sudden absence of the phone on the network during the 25 minutes when the students were being harmed was like a beacon in a lighthouse for the investigators. 4. He committed the crime, allegedly, indoors instead of outdoors. Expert criminal profiler and psychotherapist John Kelly told Fox News Digital this, and I quote, "Looking at it from an investigative standpoint and looking at the mistakes he made, Criminology 101, he looks like a moron to me. If you're going to stalk somebody and do them in, the worst place to do it is indoors because there's a really good chance you're going to leave evidence versus an outside crime scene." End quote. By the way, he did not use the verbiage do in. He used the word that rhymes with pill but starts with a K. 5. It appears that he may have inserted himself into online true crime groups on Facebook and Reddit. He likely thought his comments could not be traced back to him, but he can't outwit the ever-vigilant eyes of savvy web sleuths and the FBI. 6. Leaving Pullman, Washington in mid-December to head home to Pennsylvania in his white Hyundai Elantra, the same type of vehicle the cops were asking the people of Moscow and Pullman to look for, could be a sign that Kohberger was trying to flee, or that he was trying to find a way to ditch the albatross that his white Elantra had become. And according to John Kelly, flight can be a sign of guilt. 7. He allegedly left behind a leather K-bar sheath at the crime scene up on the 3rd floor on victim Maddie Mogen's bed. That sheath had single-source DNA on its snap, meaning the DNA of only one person. That DNA was found to belong to a son of Michael Kohberger. Brian's dad, Michael Kohberger, only has one son, Brian Kohberger. A retired FBI special agent named Maureen O'Connell also posited that the sheath being found on the 3rd floor points to that being the place where the perpetrator began. She said, and I quote, "The fact that the sheath is found in the 3rd floor bedroom where Kaylee and Maddie are, to me, that says that's where he started. When you lose your sheath on the 3rd floor, is it because you're in a hurry? Is it because it was stuffed in your waistband or in the pockets of a hoodie and it came out? And by the time you realize it, you're already going down the road. Why even bring the sheath in?" End quote. Good question. Why even bring it into the house? 8. If he's found guilty of this crime, it will show that he decided to commit it in a death penalty state where the insanity defense is not allowed. Idaho is that state. Had Kohberger committed the crime in the state where he was living, Washington, he could not be given the death penalty. Washington banned that. Casey Jordan, a professor of justice and law at Western Connecticut State University, said about Kohberger to News Nation, "The biggest thing, if you want to chalk up, if he is indeed guilty, how idiotic this is that he is in a death penalty state that doesn't have the insanity defense. It's the only state in the union that doesn't have the insanity defense." End quote. 9. Kohberger hung on to his white Elantra. If he committed the crime and was the person who drove it as it sped away from the crime scene, then he most assuredly left some blood evidence in it, likely on the steering wheel, the gas and brake pedals, maybe on the inside of the door, maybe on the door handles. The exterior of Kohberger's Elantra was absolutely filthy when he was pulled over by the police in Indiana. We could see the dirt on the police cam footage as the officer approached the car. Whoever committed the crime had to have gotten a lot of the red stuff on his body, clothes, and shoes. I'm pretty sure the perpetrator got into the car with those clothes on. He only spent from, say, 4:06 a.m. to 4:18 a.m. inside the house because the Elantra was captured on security footage at 4:04 a.m. moving along King and Queen roads in Moscow, and it was also seen speeding away at 4:20 a.m. And finally, at number 10, is the fact that if he is the masked man that survivor Dylan M. saw, then he left behind an eyewitness. And thank God he did. Until the next time on Bed Crime Stories, do me a favor, if you appreciate my work, hit that like button and subscribe to my channel.